Have you ever noticed that after you started changing internally, certain people and places started bothering you for no apparent reason? That you used to be able to live with certain attitudes, but now everything seems heavy, false, suffocating? Don't worry, this isn't a whim, much less spiritual arrogance. It's a clear sign that you've awakened, and now your body, mind, and soul simply no longer accept anything that vibrates low. What you'll understand in this video will make everything make sense, because there's a real explanation for this repulsion you feel towards certain energies, and it has nothing to do with cheap mysticism. When you awaken, your energy field changes completely. Things that previously went unnoticed now drain you, and people who were always dragging you down start to bother you in an almost physical way. It's as if the universe begins to show you what no longer belongs in your frequency. And that's exactly what we'll reveal here. Why the awakened feel repulsion towards certain energies, what it really means, and most importantly, how to use this discomfort as a spiritual compass to know what should stay and what should go from your life. Get ready, because once you understand what's behind this feeling, you'll never look at your relationships and environments the same way again. What feels like rejection is actually your awakening protecting you. Now you understand what really happens when your energy awakens, and it changes everything. From today on, nothing will deceive you anymore. You will recognize who is dragging you down, protect your peace, and consciously choose what enters and leaves your life. This is the first step to living lightly, in balance, and in power. And since this content opened your eyes and helped you see what was draining you, reciprocate this transformation. Like and subscribe to the channel. This way, you strengthen this chain of awakened people who are evolving together. And the next video will take you even deeper on this path of awakening and spiritual protection. Have you ever noticed that after you've started to change internally, things that once seemed normal now bother you deeply? Conversations you once tolerated now ring hollow. People who once seemed like good company now exhaust you. And even certain places you used to frequent begin to weigh you down. This happens to many people who awaken spiritually, and it's scary at first because you feel damaged, as if you've become too selective or stuck up. But the truth is different. You've only just begun to see what was always there, and now your body and soul are reacting to what no longer aligns with who you've become. It's as if the veil has fallen, and for the first time, you see life unfiltered. Spiritual awakening, contrary to what many people think, isn't a fairy tale full of light and flowers. It begins with discomfort. It's like waking from a deep sleep in a dark room. The light is uncomfortable, the sounds seem too loud, and all you want to do is hide back under the covers. But you can't anymore. When you begin to see the truth about people, yourself, and the world, you can't unsee it. What once seemed merely normal now reveals hidden intentions, falsehood disguised as kindness, and situations you once tolerated out of habit begin to nauseate you. That's where this repulsion arises. It's your energetic body screaming, "This doesn't suit me anymore." From then on, you begin to realize how much you were living on autopilot. You realize that many of the things you called friendship were conveniences, that many places where you felt comfortable were actually distractions, and that silence, the one that once bothered you, now becomes a refuge. You begin to prefer your own company to environments filled with noise and superficiality, and that's precisely where many people lose their way, because this moment of solitude is scary. You feel like you're distancing yourself from everything and everyone, but in reality, it's the opposite. You're getting closer to yourself. It's the natural process of energetic cleansing, where what doesn't vibrate at your new frequency simply can't stay. It's curious how the universe begins to act after you awaken. People disappear out of nowhere. Invitations stop arriving, conversations grow cold, and for a while, you wonder if you did something wrong. But you didn't. What's happening is that the universe is reorganizing your energy. It removes what distracts you, what drains you, what keeps you from evolving. It's painful, yes, but liberating. And little by little, you begin to understand that this repulsion is actually a form of protection. It's like an internal alarm warning you, this is no longer your place. And when you begin to respect this, everything changes. You begin to feel lighter, more clear, and above all, more truth in your relationships. And that's when you understand something profound. Spiritual awakening is like adjusting the focus of a lens. What was blurry now becomes clear, and what seemed beautiful from afar reveals cracks up close. You perceive intentions between the lines, feel the weight of insincere words, and begin to discern the difference between presence and appearance. It's a reality check, but it's also the beginning of freedom, because when you see clearly, you no longer allow yourself to be manipulated, deceived, or sucked in. You begin to value the energy of things and people, and you begin to be guided more by sensation than by speech. The most challenging part is dealing with this new perception, because at the same time as you feel repulsed by certain energies, you also feel guilty for distancing yourself from them. You wonder, am I being too judgmental? Am I being intolerant? And no, you're not. You're just being honest with how you feel. And that's what awakening does. It removes the blindfold, but it also requires courage to live without it. It's a lonely path at times, but full of purpose. Because when you start following what you feel, not what's expected of you, life falls into place. The right doors open, the right people appear, and what no longer has space simply collapses. During this process, it's common to feel a little strange around those who still live in illusion. People start saying you've changed, that you're cold, distant, different, and they're right. You really have changed, but you've changed because you've grown. You've stopped accepting emotional crumbs, forcing yourself to smile when something bothers you, pretending everything is fine just to please. Your energy now seeks truth, seeks peace, and everything false makes you nauseous. This isn't spiritual pride, it's energetic maturity. And this is what separates those who awaken from those who are still asleep. The courage to face the discomfort of truth instead of the security of lies. Over time, you begin to use this sensitivity like a radar. You know when you walk into a room and feel a heaviness in the air without knowing why, or when you talk to someone and even smiling, feel a strange sensation, as if something is off. This is your energy field at work. It already recognizes what feels good and what drains you. It's as if your spiritual body has gained a new sense, and the more you respect this instinct, the more lightness you attract. This is the secret of the awakened. They don't run from bad energies out of fear, but out of wisdom, because they've already understood that the price of ignoring what they feel is too high. Now tell me something. Have you been feeling this too? This repulsion towards certain people, places, or situations that previously seemed normal? Write the word in the comments. I woke up. So I know you're in this process of awakening and that you're understanding what's happening inside you. This exchange between us is important because it's how you realize you're not alone on this journey. Many people are going through the same thing, and the most interesting thing is that everyone feels the same kind of discomfort, almost like a silent call to change direction. And it's precisely this calling that I want to talk about in the next part, because there's a profound reason why this sensitivity becomes so intense after awakening. There's something that changes within you, something invisible but extremely real, and that's what makes your body react to certain energies as if it were protecting you. It's what separates those who truly awaken from those who just talk about awakening. Have you ever noticed how after your awakening, people started calling you too sensitive, as if feeling were a flaw, when in fact it's a sign of awareness? It's funny, because those who awaken spiritually begin to see and feel what others don't even notice. It's as if your antenna is tuned to pick up frequencies that previously went unnoticed. And no, this isn't drama. It's energetic sensitivity. You're not becoming weak. You're becoming more attuned to the truth. Before you tolerated certain conversations, forced yourself to smile in draining situations, and even pretended to be comfortable just to avoid conflict. Now, that's impossible. Your body senses it before you even understand it. And when it senses it, it reacts. Sometimes with fatigue, irritation, a headache, or that sudden urge to leave a place for no apparent reason. This is the new compass of the awakened. The body and energy speak before the mind. And the more you awaken, the faster this communication happens. That's why places with gossip, deceit, envy, or competition repulse you. You no longer need to rationally know what's wrong. You feel it. It's like when you enter a room and the air feels heavy, or when someone greets you with a smile, but something about them makes you uncomfortable. It's the energetic field manifesting itself, warning you that their vibration isn't in tune with yours. And the higher your state of consciousness, the more this contrast hurts. Before you were on the same vibrational level as all of this, so it went unnoticed. Now it's like trying to breathe underwater. Your body rejects it. And the most interesting thing is that this sensitivity doesn't come to isolate you, but to teach you discernment. You begin to understand what nourishes your soul and what drains it. You start paying attention not only to what people say, but to how you feel around them. This changes everything. Suddenly that friend who seemed fun seems exhausting. That environment that once did you good now seems chaotic, and what brings you peace becomes enormously valuable. It's as if your spirit is saying, enough of swallowing what's not good for you, now it's time to truly nourish yourself. And when you begin to respect this, life begins to reorganize itself. People who vibrate differently naturally move away, and those who share the same frequency come closer. But don't think this process is easy. It's common to feel confused, especially because the world around you seems to be losing its grip on you. People remain stuck in the same routines, the same fights, the same dramas, and you, deep down, feel as if you've moved to another planet. This happens because the awakened person begins to live in a different kind of harmony, one in which the noise of the ego no longer makes sense. And, even unintentionally, this bothers those still asleep. You start to be seen as strange, cold, or difficult to deal with. But in truth, you just can't pretend anymore. And that's precisely where the power of spiritual sensitivity lies. It frees you from the obligation to fit in. But this freedom comes with a challenge, learning not to absorb everything you feel. Because those who awaken become like a sponge. They absorb energies, emotions, and intentions with absurd ease. And if you don't know how to protect yourself, you end up carrying the weight of others without realizing it. Therefore, it's important to remember that sensitivity isn't a weakness. It's a superpower that needs direction. It's what allows you to identify what's real and what's a disguise. It's what teaches you to trust your intuition more than appearances. So when you feel that sudden discomfort, don't ignore it. Stop, breathe, and observe. What is this energy showing you? Sometimes discomfort is just a sign that that environment is no longer for you. Now, tell me something in the comments. Have you also felt this sensitivity increase lately? Write the word "I felt," so I know this part resonates with you. It's important to share this, because the more we talk about these experiences, the more we realize we're not alone. This is one of the greatest signs of awakening, beginning to see the world through eyes that see beyond the physical. And the curious thing is that this sensitivity, which at first seems like a burden, over time becomes your greatest guide. Because it doesn't just distance you from bad energies, it brings you closer to the truth. And there's a specific moment when this transition becomes clear. It's when you begin to realize that repulsion isn't the problem, but proof that something inside you has finally awakened. There comes a moment in awakening when you realize that you simply, I can't live on autopilot anymore. What once entertained you now seems meaningless. The forced laughter in conversations, the repetitive topics, the need to appear to be someone you're not. Everything begins to cause you an almost physical discomfort. And the curious thing is that it's not something you decide. It's something your being imposes. It's as if your soul says, this doesn't nourish me anymore. This is where the natural distancing from what is artificial begins. The awakened person begins to feel a deep repulsion for everything that feels false, forced, or self-serving. You begin to realize how much the world revolves around appearances, and this leaves you with the feeling of being surrounded by plastic, people and situations that seem real but have no essence. This is one of the hardest parts of the process because it's the moment when you start to see the world as it really is, not as you'd like it to be. And when that happens, everything superficial loses its luster. Suddenly you find yourself unwilling to participate in certain conversations, unwilling to frequent the same places, and often lacking the patience to maintain certain relationships. And it's at this point that many people judge you, saying you've changed, that you've become distant, cold, antisocial. But what they don't understand is that you've only just begun to seek authenticity, and this bothers those who still live with masks. With awakening, you begin to prefer silence to empty arguments, the uncomfortable truth to a convenient lie. And it's not that you think you're better than anyone else, it's that your spirit is tired of wasting energy on what has no life. People, still trapped in illusions, think the awakened are arrogant, but in truth they're just exhausted from pretending. You realize how much the world is driven by appearances and how much you yourself, before awakening, were part of this theater. And it's hard to acknowledge this. It's hard to admit that many of the smiles you gave were to avoid conflict, that many of the opinions you held were to please, and that many of the company you kept was only out of fear of loneliness. But when the truth comes out, there's no going back. You start to feel like you need to cleanse yourself energetically, and that includes distancing yourself from those who live trapped in superficiality. Gradually, deep conversations become what truly nourishes you. You seek meaning, connection, purpose. Life begins to divide between what nourishes you and what drains you, and what drains you inevitably falls away. It's a natural filtering, a vibrational selection, and the beautiful thing is that you don't have to force anything. What's not aligned simply loses ground. People move away, paths close, opportunities disappear, and at first it feels like you're losing everything. But over time, you realize you're simply freeing yourself from what was holding you back. It is at this point that their pulsion towards false energies takes on a completely different meaning. It's not rejection, it's protection. Your energy system begins to function as a truth detector. It rejects anything that is manipulation, falsehood, or games, and you feel it in your body. You become restless, anxious, sometimes even wanting to leave a place without knowing why. It's your spirit saying, "Not here." And when you begin to respect this feeling, everything changes. You stop doubting your intuition, stop justifying the unjustifiable, and start trusting your feelings, even if others don't understand. Now, perhaps you're noticing that with each step of awakening, fewer things make sense, that what once entertained you now bores you, that what once motivated you now feels empty. And this is completely normal. It's your system adjusting to live with purpose. But there's something even deeper happening behind this shift, something that's not just psychological, but energetic. Because when you begin to move away from what is artificial, your frequency truly shifts. And it's precisely this shift that makes silence begin to have a different power. Have you ever noticed that the more awake you become, the more valuable silence becomes? Before it bothered you, it felt empty, lonely, even sad. But now silence is almost a shelter. It's the only place where your energy seems to breathe, and it's no coincidence. When you awaken spiritually, the noise of the world begins to tire you. The pointless conversations, the rush of people, the constant sound of those who talk a lot and feel little, all of this becomes heavy. You begin to realize that true peace isn't in doing more, but in achieving silence, the by noise to hear what really matters, your own essence. It's in silence that you hear what the world tries to hide. When the mind calms, the heart speaks. And what it says sometimes isn't what you want to hear, but it's what you need. That's why silence scares so many people. It forces you to face what has always been muffled by the noise. It's in silence that you realize what's wrong, what's pending, what needs to be changed. And those who awaken understand this. They understand that being silent isn't escaping reality. It's reconnect with her without interference. It's as if silence were a clean mirror where you finally see yourself as you are, without masks, without noise, without distractions. After awakening, silence ceases to be the absence of sound and becomes presence of consciousness. You begin to experience the world differently. A simple moment sitting and watching the wind or the distant sound of nature becomes more valuable than hours of conversation. And not because you've become a hermit, but because you've realized how much people talk to fill the void, while the awakened use silence to understand it. It's a kind of quiet power, a strength that comes from stillness. And it's at this frequency that you begin to realize how much the external noise served to mask the internal noise. The energy of silence is transformative, because in it, the ego cannot disguise itself. When you fall silent, the world tries to pull you back into the noise, and that's when you realize how addicted society is to distractions. Everything screams for attention, notifications, opinions, comparisons. But the more awake you are, the less tolerance you have for it. You begin to feel that excess stimulation isn't life, it's escape. That true comfort comes not from being busy, but from being present. And the more you surrender to silence, the clearer everything becomes, the answers you were looking for, the signs you ignored, and even the people who truly do you good. The curious thing is that silence also changes your social energy. You speak less but communicate more. People begin to feel the difference in your presence because it truly carries weight. You no longer need to fill the space with words to be noticed. Your energy speaks for you. And this has two effects. It attracts those who vibrate at the same frequency and disturbs those who still depend on noise to exist. This is why many awakened ones end up being misunderstood. They think you've distanced yourself, that you're strange or distant. But in reality, you're just tired of wasting words where silence already says it all. And it is at this point that you begin to understand one of the greatest secrets of the spiritual life. Silence is not empty, it is expansion. It's where the universe talks to you. It's where you perceive the signs, intuit the next step, understand what your body and soul are trying to tell you. And that's why, after awakening, you simply can't stand noisy, confusing, and energy-dense environments anymore. They throw you off balance. It's as if your vibration begins to crave more purity, and silence is the channel through which this purity manifests. Now think with me. What if I told you that this silence is not only a refuge, but also a powerful tool, that within it there is a frequency capable of recalibrate your energy, heal what's blocked, and even transform the way you see life? That's exactly what the next part will reveal, the true power behind what you feel. When everything around you goes silent, have you ever felt a heavy energy just by being near someone, even without them saying a word? Or walked into a room and felt your body tense, your heart tighten, without understanding why? This isn't a coincidence. It's a vibration. Everything in the universe emits energy. People, places, thoughts, emotions. And when you awaken spiritually, you begin to perceive this much more clearly. It's as if you gained a sixth sense, a radar that identifies from afar what is in harmony and what is out of alignment. But the most important thing is not just perceiving external energies, but understand what they reflect within you. The law of energetic reflection is simple yet powerful. Everything that bothers you externally reveals something that still needs healing within. And this isn't just a nice phrase, it's a reality that the awakened person begins to experience firsthand. Sometimes that person who irritates or repulses you is simply reflecting a part of you that you haven't yet accepted. It's hard to admit, I know. But awakening isn't about pointing out what's wrong with others. It's about realizing what the universe is trying to show you through them. Every discomfort is a mirror. And the more aware you become, the more you understand that external energies only affect you when they resonate internally. For example, if someone humiliates you and it destroys you, it's because deep down there's still an open wound about your worth. If someone lies to you and it shakes you deeply, perhaps there's a part of you that still feels insecure or vulnerable. When you heal this internally, the power of these external energies disappears. They continue to exist, but they no longer affect you. And that's why the awakened person begins to distance themselves from fights, arguments, and people who live in drama. They realize that reacting is giving away power, that the more you react, the more energy you waste on what doesn't deserve your attention. And that's where true transformation begins. The awakened person stops trying to change others and begins to observe themselves. They understand that they don't control what the world emits, but they can control what they choose to absorb. And this is liberating. You realize that you can be in the midst of chaos and still maintain your peace, because it no longer depends on external factors. And this is precisely what differentiates the awakened from those who are still asleep. The awakened have learned to read the energy, instead of just reacting to it. He observes, understands the reflection, and uses it as a map of self-knowledge. But this process requires honesty with yourself, because there's no point in saying you vibrate high if you still harbor hurt, envy, or resentment. These are the cracks through which dense energies enter. It's like leaving a window open during a storm and then complaining about the mess. Awakening invites you to close these windows, not out of fear but with awareness. Healing the inner self is the only way to shield the outer self. And this healing happens gradually, every time you choose not to react with anger, every time you choose to understand instead of judge, every time you use discomfort as a mirror instead of a shield. Now think about it. How many times have you felt repulsed by someone and then realized that person taught you something about yourself? Sometimes the energy that irritates you the most is precisely the one that shows you what you still need to resolve. So the next time you feel energetic discomfort, instead of running away, observe. Ask yourself, what is this energy trying to show me? This question changes everything. And this is exactly where true spiritual maturity begins, when you understand that even bad energies have a purpose, and that repulsion isn't always rejection, but a sign of growth. Write the word in the comments reflection. So I know this part made you think. This is the kind of awareness that transforms, because it makes you stop blaming the world and start looking within. And it is in this looking that the awakened find the power they always had, but never knew how to use. And speaking of power, there's a point at which this understanding completely changes the way you relate to people and life. Because when you understand the reflection, you begin to choose the energy you want to maintain. And it's at this point that something even more profound emerges. The peace that accepts no bargains, the moment when the awakened one understands that preserving their vibration is the most sacred act of self-love there is. There comes a time when you understand. Peace is not negotiable. After you awaken spiritually, you realize that the price of holding on to certain people or situations is too high. It's the kind of trade that leaves you drained, tired, and with a heavy soul. And when you reach this point, the awakened person simply can't pretend anymore. They begin to choose who they talk to, where they go, what they listen to, what they consume, not out of pride but out of self-protection, because peace, once achieved, becomes the most valuable asset there is. Before, you accepted chaos because you hadn't yet experienced inner silence. Now that you do, any unnecessary noise feels like an invasion. The most interesting thing is that at this stage, you no longer feel the need to prove anything to anyone. Those who awaken begin to understand that it's not their job to convince others, change others, or explain themselves. True evolution doesn't shout, it vibrates. That's why people may even think you've become cold or indifferent, when in fact, you've only learned to preserve your energy. You understand that every word you spend on someone who doesn't want to listen is an escape from your own peace. And when you realize this, you begin to choose silence, distance, and serenity over the need to be right. This is spiritual maturity, understanding that the world can be at war, and yet you can be at peace. This new way of living changes everything. You begin to realize that true power lies in do not react, that self-control is not weakness, but strength in disguise. The awakened no longer seeks conflict. They seek harmony, and when they don't find it, they withdraw. They no longer need to prove themselves right, because they understand that truth needs no defense, and the more you vibrate at this frequency, the more life begins to align with what is genuine. Toxic people move away, wrong opportunities disappear, and all that is true remains. It's not magic, it's frequency. What vibrates in love stays. What vibrates in ego falls. But this selectivity isn't arrogance, it's self-respect. It's knowing that keeping your energy clean is your responsibility. And those who truly awaken understand that you can't heal the world while living intoxicated by the pain of others. Empathy remains, but now it comes with limits. You help, but you don't carry. You embrace, but you don't lose yourself, because you've learned that compassion without discernment becomes self-destruction. And those who have experienced this exhaustion know how much it hurts to try to save someone who still doesn't want to save themselves. That's when you learn the value of no, and not an angry no, but a loving no, self-love. Over time, this posture makes you feel increasingly lighter. Life begins to flow, and everything becomes clearer. You realize that the energies that once destabilized you no longer have power over you. It's as if you've built an invisible armor made of peace, and the longer you maintain this frequency, the more the universe protects you. That's why they say the awakened seem untouchable, not because they don't face problems, but because they've understood that nothing external can destroy those who live in internal alignment. This is true spiritual armor, not made of rituals, but of consciousness. Now you understand why feeling repulsed by certain energies isn't a flaw, but a clear sign of evolution. This content helped you see spiritual awakening differently, as a protection, a natural filter that separates what lifts you up from what drags you down. And if this video helped you better understand what's going on inside you, then it's already fulfilled its mission. Now it's your turn to spread this awareness. Like and subscribe to the channel so more people can awaken and find the same clarity you found here. Comment on the word "I awakened" in the comments so I know you're part of this new generation of people who have chosen to take charge of their own energy. And get ready, because the next video will take you even deeper. It will show you what happens when the awakened begin to transform the environment around them simply by their presence. What comes next is the turning point for those who are truly ready to experience awakening fully.